What's going on, guys? Happy Friday. I hope everybody had a great week. If you didn't, listen, you know how it goes, man. I like to think there's no such thing as bad days, maybe bad moments. I know that sounds like a fortune cookie, but the older you get, the more you hold on to those types of things. Uh, that being said, a lot of exciting things going on, man. OpenAI makes a huge announcement. We've been following for some time now, for you guys that have been tuned in, really what's going on in the AI field, a little bit of decentralization as well. So we always hear these buzzwords, right? Like, AI or Web3 or wherever, whatever you hear, because you see them every day. But I think what's really important is not only to make sense of it, but to get a good, strong vision of where it's actually going, right? Because if you understand where it's going, then as the industry begins to evolve, just like anything in life, it becomes more about pattern recognition, right? And you could see how you can extract value from those things and add them to your everyday life. And I think that's what's really important is, yeah, it's cool that technology is growing, but we have to pay attention to those human elements. It's also important to be pragmatic and see, well, where's this actually going and what does it mean in the context of my life? And because some people, not everybody's going to be jumping in AI and using it for coding or using it for, deep ML research. There's going to be some people that'll just use it for everyday things like their calendar, or in the future, which we'll talk about today, for those that kind of tuned in. I wrote an article today. I guys, like, at least once a week I try to release some content, and I just wrote an article on this, from browsing to delegating, the end of the attention economy. And I'm a firm believer, to be quite honest with you, uh, that agents will be the internet of tomorrow. And for me, what does that look like? Well, right now in the internet, it's a lot of competing for your attention, right? For clicks. And right now, that's really humans behind the screen. But in the internet of tomorrow, what's going to end up happening is it's going to be competing for agents, right? So a lot of people, let's say on your behalf, are going to be not only having a lot of things automated for them, but they're going to be automated by personalized agents that'll probably be tied to personal IP. And this is something that I really feel strongly about. I think in the same way that you have characters in Disney or you have any other character, people will have brands. I mean, we already do now. If you think in the idea of a resume, or you think idea of people that stream or whatnot, companies, people will have AI avatars that, act on their behalf. We've been talking about this at Posse Studios forever now. It's one of the things that we're working on building. But the reality is that what'll end up happening is, imagine you wake up in the morning and you say, okay, I need to check my calendar for the day. What am I doing for the day? Almost like, off the top of my head, I forgot her name, but you know how Iron Man, you know, Robert Downey in his office has like the big, the giant AI that talks to him. I forgot that. I can't believe it's eluding me. Uh, but the truth of the matter is in the future, it'd be very much like that, interacting on social, scheduling meetings, making transactions and payments. That's a big race right now. Companies like Stripe, in the Web3 space, companies like MoonPay, people are racing to develop these technologies, agent to agent transactions, because that's what it looks like on the back end. A lot of that will end up being abstracted, but these things will be operating on your behalf. So if you can imagine where that's all going, the internet of tomorrow will be competing for agent attention. And this is something that, to be honest with you, I think is going to happen sooner than later. I think it's already starting to, and people don't even realize it, because sometimes, as the saying goes, if you can't beat them, you join them. And what I mean by that is, for the longest time, one of the biggest issues of the internet has been with bots, right? People are talking about spam and bots. Maybe the best way to compete against that is to kind of have, if you're going to have spam and bots, at least have something out there that's useful and helpful, right? And it seems to me that human attention is going to become a commodity. I mean, it already is, but the value of that alone, really anything human, is going to be huge, absolutely huge. It's going to command an overwhelming majority of the economy. And I think a lot of people that are able to see these patterns and able to recognize it are going to capitalize on it. And you're going to see a whole new era of business. And I know that a lot of people are worried about AI, but ironically, I think it's going to end up funneling a lot of that back to the human experience. And once again, for the reasons I kind of stated, just because people are going to see how scarce that is, they're in a state of mind where it's like, okay, technology is going to grow. But at the end of the day, it's about the experiences we have, right? Memories with family, even when you're growing a business or maybe you are career driven, those experiences that grow you in between that's important, right? And if you're able to buy back some of your time and you're able to automate some of the stuff that takes away from those elements that, so to speak, make it special, then you're able to buy back, which is the one thing that everybody looks for, I think, which is freedom, right? Whether it be in the form of speech, whether it be in the form of your time, which is really at the end of the day, the most valuable asset there is. So the internet of tomorrow, as we said, being powered by agents is going to be a real thing. And like I said, I think social media influencers, you're already starting to see that online. If you go on TikTok, if you go on really just any social media, there's a lot of that stuff that's not it's not real people, man. It's AI acting on people's behalf, and it's scary how good it is. To be honest with you, it's getting better and better. So with OpenAI announcing something like this, Codex, it's even bigger because now if you can tell this momentum's picking up, right? It's all about fast tracking that. The speed at which we're moving, is that good? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's subjective, right? We're living in the moment. I think it's really hard to say right now um, whether it's really good or bad, or whether that's even the right question. Uh, I think the fact is we do need to be careful, right? We do need to make sure that there's checks and balances in place. We do need to make sure that a lot of this is being catered to the right people and the right individuals and managed by the right people and the right individuals. I think it's even more important that we look at AI as truly a companion as opposed to just a tool, right? I don't think it should replace creators. It shouldn't replace those, that create all the incredible things that we know and love, but it should definitely assist. And I think, by buying more time, it gives people, the time to be able to dedicate the mental capacity that we already have that seems fleeting. Because I don't know about you, but I say this all the time. When I wake up in the morning, I feel like a video game character with a stamina bar above my head. And every little thing that you have to do, it takes away from that, right? Like you only have so much capacity. And if you don't take care of that, your attention, right? What ends up happening is you go down a rabbit hole and you never get anything done. It's doesn't become productive anymore. In this particular case, I think that was what will become the end of the attention economy. Don't get me wrong. When I say the end of the attention economy, it's not that social platforms and all these platforms won't, continue to cater towards grabbing attention, because of course human attention is going to once again be a commodity. It'll be the most valuable resource on the planet probably, because at the end of the day, that's what time is, right? Someone dedicating their time, their attention to something, whether it be through building something or whether it be through education, so they could take that and teach it to someone else, or art that can inspire somebody to do something incredible. These are all different forms. Uh, but the truth is it will change, and we will have a lot of agents acting on our behalf. People will be having agents doing their social posts for them. And right now that sounds cringe for some people. Um, I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? What the end goal is. If you have something, that emulates your thoughts and the way you think, the way you act, the way you approach things, and people relate with that brand, I think, isn't that what art already is? Like if you think about music, right? People that write music, people that are 3D designers, people that paint, like it's all form of art. It's a form of expression, right? And if people relate with that, if they connect with that, well, then, at the end of the day, they build a brand or a following or whatnot. I think it's the same way. I think as people are building these digital personas now, the actual them, like you're looking at me, obviously this isn't AI. But the truth is what if it was? What if you did have, a platform where it was speaking on your behalf? Is that any less real if it's really, you're programming your thoughts and your feelings and how you are. I think it's a digital version. It's kind of like that, philosophical question where if you download your brain in a computer, like, all the crazy new era conversations, which quite frankly, I used to say things like this are nuts, but when you look at Neuralink and you look at everything that's going on, the crazy is starting to become the norm. And that's a wild thought. So yeah, perhaps in the future we will be downloading our brains and machines. I'll be honest with you at this point, I think I'm almost certain of it. What does that look like though? Obviously the question is that really you? Well, I think that's going to be a philosophical question for the era, to be honest with you. I think this is one that we'll be asking ourselves. There's a multitude of different groups of people building in this era right now. You have those that are just driven, right, by capitalism. Or maybe they're just driven by a drive within themselves. Maybe there's something that they're trying to accomplish, whatever it might be. It's clearly pushing society forward at a rapid pace. Moore's law, etc. We're seeing this begin to scale in such a way that we've never seen anything move at this pace throughout human history. I mean, whether you look at the Industrial Revolution, you look at any revolution in any society. I mean, it's earth shattering. It's you know what I mean. This is an experience that far surpasses the iPhone. So seeing these agents, I think it's important to understand what's going on. I think it's important to understand what it could mean, the different potentials. And that's obviously stuff that we'll be talking about moving forward. But on to some news. I thought it would be really cool where we can tune in a little bit to the live stream. They're supposed to be at like 8 a.m. on California side. Obviously, I'm in New York area. So for me, Princeton to be precise. So, it's East Coast time. It's 3 hours. But I thought it'd be really cool to dive in. And obviously, we can cover a little bit of what I was talking about today throughout this, the agents. But check it out and tell me what you guys think. If you like it or you have any opinions on it, that'd be great. So yeah, for those that don't know, OpenAI essentially announced Codex, which is pretty cool. And we'll take a look. Let me show you some of that on Twitter. Let's see. Introduces the research preview of Codex and ChatGPT. And essentially the idea behind this is kind of like Claude, if you ask me, or like, coding, like Cursor, where it's just AI assisted coding and stuff like that. It's pretty neat because it's, I was taking a look at it and reviewing everything, and it's nutty, man. Will it replace software developers and engineers? Yeah, I mean, honestly, it depends. I think there's more to that statement, right? When people say, oh, it's going to replace 3D developers, it's going to replace all these people in their jobs. Yeah, yes, it is. But I think it's how it does, right? That's more important to pay attention to, because there still will be opportunities there. I don't think like the opportunities are going to go away. I think like anything in society and any time period in society, some people will adapt and pivot and some people won't. And that is a harsh reality, but it's one that everybody's going to have to face. So I think embracing these things and figuring out how to use them in unique ways is going to serve a purpose. I think even plumbers or electricians, imagine them walking around with an AI, which you already do with your phone, right? Like you can argue we're already partial Android. But walking with your phone, maybe they have a meter, maybe they have something that assists them in the process of what they're doing. Even in tradesmen, we're going to see a lot of stuff like this. It doesn't mean it's going to replace people completely. Think of 3D development. Like right now, at Posse, we're developing a standalone 3D modeling system through Prompt. So people that maybe aren't familiar with 3D modeling can be able to build models and put them in games or use them for architecture, whatever it might be that they do. And to me, one way of looking at that is, yeah, you could be, as some people might say, you're replacing people, but I don't think it is. I think you're lowering a barrier. I think you're allowing more people to come into a field and experience it. And I think that's one of the biggest powers of AI, right? You're able to remove some of these technical barriers. Don't get me wrong. It's very clear that you're still going to need the experts that understand this on a fundamental level. Imagine you create a 3D object. It doesn't mean you know how to tweak it. It doesn't mean that you can do all these small edits, because the truth is even if you do that through text and you're like, edit this small part and edit this small part, sometimes words aren't as precise as going into something and just manually adjusting that exact component, that exact thing, that small particular thing that you want to move. It could be adjusting, you know, something as small as the angle or a sizing, or just something that just tends to lend itself better towards manual adjustment. Sometimes words can be long and drawn out, and you have to make this long explanation, and you'd rather just go in there and do it, right? So there is something to be said for that, and I think that that is what the internet and what the future of technology looks like. You're going to have these AI assistants that can help you generate these things, but you'll still need that customizable aspect. And I think that's what's going to be unique, because it'll draw people in to learn more. And those that are able to provide tools like that, those are going to be the companies I think you're going to start to see run away and succeed. And people worry about saturated markets and things like that. That's inevitable, right? But I think if you build, you build for a particular group of people and, a niche. I think at the end of the day, it's the why, right? You have to focus on why you're doing it and whether it makes sense. But the truth is it's not going to stop. This industry is only going to continue to scale. So that being said, let's jump in a little bit of the OpenAI stream. Let's see.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Software engineering is changing, and by the end of 2025, it's going to look fundamentally different. In 2021, we announced our first model that we called Codex. This was the first time that we've really demonstrated what we would now call vibe coding. Just a couple weeks ago, we released Codex CLI, which is a local agent that runs on your laptop in your own terminal. You're able to pair with and interact with in a synchronous fashion. Today, we're going to take a step towards where we think software engineering is going, and we are releasing a new system, which is a remote software agent that can run many tasks in parallel. We call this system, in the grand tradition of OpenAI naming, Codex. The thing that is exciting about Codex is that it runs with your repository, your environment on OpenAI compute. So you're able to run many, many copies of it. So you're able to do many tasks in parallel, fire them off, come back to them later, which is something that we'll be showing you today. We're rolling this out to ChatGPT for Pro, Enterprise, and Teams users starting today. And we will be following up with Plus and EDU in the future. Codex is powered by a new model that we call Codex 1. This is our best coding model to date. We've taken O3 and we've optimized it for not just the benchmarks, but really for the kind of code that people actually want to merge into their code base. So thinking about comments, thinking about extraneous changes, thinking about the style, so that it's something that actually really accelerates people's work. And so to show you this system, which we're so excited to share with you, we have many members of the Codex team.
Hey, I'm Hanson. I'm one of the members of the Codex research team.
I'm Josh, and I'm an engineer on the Codex team.
And I'm Thibaut, and I built code agents and the infrastructure to power them. I'm going to be jumping right into the demo. So normally, you would have to connect your GitHub account. I've already done that for myself. And here I'm going to be selecting my repo. I have selected an open source repo, the preparedness repo, which contains some of our frontier evals made by the amazing preparedness team that we have here. And this is relevant, like frontier evals are really about agents. So I'm just going to be using that environment. And then I'm greeted with 3 tasks that we believe are good to get started with on any repo. The first one is an ask task, which just asks the code agent, Codex, to explain the code base to a newcomer, explain the general structure. The second one is a code task, which asks to find and fix a bug somewhere in the repo. Most of the repos, as you all know, have bugs. So let's see. Let's see if the Codex agent can find one. I did not put any bugs in there. This is code that we work with every day. And so we're going to be showing 2 repos today. One is the preparedness repo, and the other one is the Codex CLI one. And the final one is one that I'm really excited about, where I ask it to go through the code base and not just explore the code base, but also come up with proactive task suggestions that it could be doing on its own. So let's start those. Now we have 3 Codex agents working on these tasks concurrently, just in the background. And what I'm also going to do is, one of my favorites is find as many typos and grammar mistakes as you can and fix them. I think this didn't matter. Let's see if it understands also that my instructions as I make typos. And I have scheduled a task just before this, before we were going to jump on this, where I asked something quite interesting to the Codex agent. I ask it about one of my goals. I say, my code base I want it to be maintainable and bug-free. Read through the code, propose some tasks that would help with this goal, and don't overemphasize on to-dos. Like, to-dos are everywhere in code bases. Those I know about. I want novel things. And so the Codex agent went through the code base, and in its little environment, as we're going to show you, it found out about multiple things. Let's have a look. One of them here looks like we are having mutable defaults as arguments. Let's have Codex fix that.
Definitely fix that.
So let's schedule that. Correct variable spelling. I believe this will get fixed as part of the other task, but let's schedule that anyway. And then here, there was like a little consistency about how we set timeouts. One time we set it to 120, another time we set it to 60. This Codex agent here has proposed a task for itself. So we are delegating the delegation here, which blows my mind every time. And I'm just going to say, make it 120. I think this is like the right timeout here. And let's have it code out for us. And then let's jump into maybe this task here and see the Codex agent at work. So this isn't running on my laptop here. What exactly is going on here, and like how does this work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Devo. So as evidence from just seeing all these tasks launch in parallel, we now need new agentic coding infrastructure for this world where agents need not only their own GPUs, but also a couple of CPUs. So this runs on OpenAI's compute infrastructure. It's actually, in fact, the same infrastructure we use for our reinforcement learning, and which means, fortunately, even ahead of this launch, has been battle tested on the large-scale training runs that we do. And crucially, it's also consistent between what the agent sees during training and what the agent sees later in production. So each of these tasks runs in its own micro VM sandbox, own file system, CPU, memory, network policy, and the agent has free reign within it, right? So the agent has learned how to use all your POSIX commands like grep, sed, knows how to run linting, formatting, and obviously it likes to write and execute a whole bunch of code.
Yeah, one thing that I really love about this interface is just how lightweight it makes it to spin up tasks, right? It's just your task left and right. And I think that really makes it a big difference for how you use it.
I think it's a lot of powerful infrastructure, and like the web interface makes it nice to interface with it, but I think it's also a lot more configurable.
Yeah, so each task runs in what we call environment, essentially more or less a repo, but with environment variables, secrets, and setup scripts configured so that you can customize the runtime to more fully unlock the agent's capabilities. When we worked with early alpha testers, we found that you get really big early wins by installing something as simple as a linter or a formatter. And we actually now install a lot of those by default. And of course, our power users have all their test dependencies set up. For OpenAI's internal environments, we have even pre-commit hooks set up. So as the agent's coding, it's actually committing, seeing what the commit hooks say. Really similar to actually my own dev environment.
That sounds really exciting. Maybe let's watch it work. And we're going to jump to an environment that we have fully configured, like the Codex CLI, and let's demo something cool with it.
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite use cases for Codex is its ability to find and resolve complex issues. So even leading up to this launch, I think Codex actually found and fixed a couple of critical bugs in our code. But here we're looking at the Codex CLI, which Thibaut and I have worked on. So we've got a bug report from a user here. Basically, when they have file names with special characters, the diff command in the CLI shows up with an error message. And so one of the things we've trained our agents to do is not just like address these issues, but also we've introduced this concept of an agent's MD file. So we know for developers it's extremely important to provide steerability and instruction to the model. And so the first thing we'll see it do here, it'll actually take a look at the agent's MD file in the repository. And so here we've provided some instructions about the layout of the repository. You can see one of the special instructions here, we've asked it to print Some ASCII art to the terminal. I think, does that look like a cat to you guys?
It's a different cat every time.
It passes my cat test.
Yeah, pretty good. And then I think we also saw above that basically we also told it, like here's the TypeScript part of the repo in the Codex CLI, and along with some instructions about how to run tests here, which is pretty important for the agent. So one of the cool things about the way we train these models with end-to-end reinforcement learning, they not just write code, but they also know how to navigate the code base and even reproduce the issue. So here, it's written a little script for itself. So you can see it's similar to us. I don't know about you guys, but I love to use print debugging.
Never.
That's something we see emergent kind of as part of the ORL training. It actually wrote a little script here to reproduce the issue. It's written a file actually that matches the user's description, and it's actually able to execute the code to actually verify that the issue's able to be reproduced.
It's displaying a lot of complex behavior that is very similar to how we all work. How do we teach the agent to do that?
Yeah, I think so. We have a lot of these kinds of tasks in training. We use end-to-end reinforcement learning to actually verify that it completes the entire cycle from writing code to running tests, and then we verify that that it actually is able to complete the tasks and satisfy, for example, both style checks and programmatic checks, and many other things. And then we can see that on evaluations like Sweetbench, this results in state-of-the-art performance. So it's actually we can see here it's actually found the issue and it's actually writing a test for itself now so we can see that it's verifying its work for us. And it's almost done here. So it's actually, now it's even running linters to verify that the code is matching our style expectations.
And I saw it refer back to its agents.md here.
Yeah, exactly. So as part of the agents.md, you can provide detailed guidelines on, for example, commit messages and PR messages and how exactly you want your code to be structured.
It looks like it's preparing files for commit.
Yeah, I think it's almost done. So just within, the time that we spent talking, this change probably would have taken me, at least 30 minutes or even hours to debug, and just in a moment, I think we'll see the final PR.
And the other thing is, you could do this from your phone.
Exactly. Yeah, it looks like it's under the PR. How's this look to you, Thibaut?
Let's have a look. It's kind of tricky to review code so fast here, but one of the things here is that it did add a test. It's a repro test for the issue that we mentioned. So this seems to match here. And also what gives me confidence is that it actually ran this test. And there is a little proof here, which we'll talk about later, where I gain a lot of confidence here that this test is actually passing. So I would just go and push and create a PR here. But now that we have a whole bunch more tasks to have completed, what do you think, Greg?
I mean, I think this is magic. I'm definitely feeling the AGI here. Thank you all. And
that's crazy. And that's just the beginning, man. As you see a lot more of this begin to unfold, we're starting to see that, look where it's going. Just take a step back, for those that might remember what the internet was like in the beginning, right? So I'm like an old man now, right? 35. So I remember, as we hear, I feel like a boomer now, running around outside and, playing and all that good stuff. But I remember the birth of technology, at least the modern era, right? When first held a Nintendo, a Game Boy, and you first moved into Netscape, or you had Roadrunner, dial, all that stuff. And we've heard these stories a million times. But the truth is it's looking at how it shapes society. What was happening in that era, right? The air, the just the feel, the overall vibe in the industry and how it was evolving. And you're seeing that. I mean, honestly, I would argue you didn't even see that with the whole Web3, the crypto era. It's cool, Bitcoin is revolutionary, I guess, in a sense where it decentralizes, a financial economy. And that's important. I feel like the philosophy of that is extremely important. But this will change your everyday life. the reality is crypto became more of a niche, right? Like you either invest in or you don't. It's no different than a stock market. Like not everybody's jumping into the stock market and looking to invest in it. It's something you have money in, right? You're just like, yeah, I got a portfolio, I put stuff in. But these types of tools and the way these economies are being shaped, they're going to change everyday life. And like I said, as we talked about earlier, one way that I truly see this shaping is with agents that are online. Like, for example, they will be your IP. So for the last 2 decades, and I'll pull this up, wrote about this, you could see the internet's fought for one thing, human attention, right? So every scroll, click, blinking red notification has been carefully engineered to ambush. We basically became the product. People became the product. So what is the counter to that, right? Well, the counter to that is getting your time back. And, this attention is going to get outsourced because that's what humans do, right? We outsource things. If we're already automating things, what makes you think you're not going to automate yourself? And that's what's going to be more wild to me. I think the next iteration of the internet won't be a place that begs for your attention. It'll be a place that competes for your agent's favor because it's working on behalf of you. And you're seeing more and more companies race towards this. I think in gaming as well. When GTA 6 comes out, you already have a lot of people talking about, what can possibly be going on. You have famous streamers like Aiden Ross already saying, like, they're going to develop private servers that are driven by crypto economies, and it's nutty, man. And it's just the beginning. Now you listen to somebody say something and you're like, okay, like you're a little bit out of your mind until now you see it. So really, what does it mean? I think it means that, it's something that we have to use wisely. I think it's something that's worth paying attention to. It's worth finding agents that essentially appeal to the tasks and the things that you need that you want to start solving. Just get out there and play with it. Like a lot of the tools that I see now, I just jump on there and I play with them, whether they be on, TikTok or somewhere. I don't know, however it finds me. You jump in there and you start playing around with some of these tools and you start to see really quick how useful they are. And there's people that are building entire businesses from scratch with them, whether not just like social media where people are clipping, which is a huge thing now, but it could be anything, like it could be task schedules. It could be, things that go through your content, that go through things that you've tweeted about, things that you've written in the past and create more content on behalf of you for that. Payment systems, those are going to be the bigger ones. Like we talked about earlier, having your agent say, hey, listen, this is my routine for the day. This is what I need done. And it just essentially go and does it for you. And if there's something that it needs to purchase, because there's a paywall there, right? Like it needs to access another service or it needs to complete a purchase for you. It could be anything like DoorDash, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. Your agent will, on behalf of you, order something from DoorDash or complete tasks from jobs. Imagine a future where, you're still going to have to work, right? But, the more I think about it, because once again, everything is pattern recognition, just like art, just like anything. And I think when you begin to really, somebody told me once when I was a kid, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth because you should listen twice as much as you speak. And if you do that sometimes and you sit back, you begin to see patterns. You begin to see where this is all going. And it's just really either bigger or smaller forms of what we're already used to. And in this particular case, imagine you're working for your job and your job says, hey, they need these tasks done. Computational power is still expensive, right? So even if these companies hire, get all these agents, that's still going to translate to a bill. And once again, this is all speculation. This is just, from my experience over the last few decades of working in tech. I mean, what do I know? This is just a shot in the dark, but if you pay attention to it and you really, see what they're trying to tell you and you utilize a lot of this stuff, these are conclusions that inevitably everybody's going to come to. It's just a matter of, who gets there first and who's thinking about it now. And that's when obviously capitalism gets involved and, everybody's motivated by different things. But to me, I think it's just interesting as a bystander and also as a builder, to see this all unfold. Because like once again, companies, when they have these agents, let's play this scenario out, right? We can play this scenario out. And if you guys have any ideas or comments or where you think, please, by all means, I'm really curious to hear what you think about it. But how I see it is you wake up, right? Your companies put out their tasks for the day and your agents will complete them. And now you might say, well, why wouldn't the company do that? Well, I think there's a multitude of different reasons, but the biggest one that would stand out to me is expense, right? So you have to pay somebody a salary. But I think you could see energy prices, even though we're moving towards a greener economy, it's still expensive, right? To produce energy, we've already seen through, multiple engineers, and you hear Elon talk about this all the time. More and more, factories are being built to manage the demand, because to be honest with you, a lot of AI cost is subsidized, and people don't realize just how much infrastructure is needed and the cost to manage an AI future like this. And if companies can take that expense and put that off on others or employees, well, obviously that's what they're going to do, right? So imagine you have your agents and you outsource that IP, right? Because you own that. And that agent is doing things on your behalf that was commissioned to you, almost like freelancers. So I think your job of tomorrow is you're still working for a company. It just looks different. And that company says, hey, today we need this, and this done. Maybe it's even a job board. Who knows? Who knows what that looks like? I mean, we can speculate together and come up with a couple different ideas. But I think one is that, let's say you're working for a company and they send out your report, your task for the day. Your agent goes through your calendar, and gets them all done. And you can even argue those that have better computing resources. I think there's going to be a whole different class. I mean, this could get really sci-fi, but I really don't think it's sci-fi anymore. I think there'll be a whole new classes that are created in society. Not everybody can afford a 5090, right? Some people are still using a 1060. Some people are using a 3080. Some people have limited limited access to computing power. So imagine your agents are completing those tasks, and people probably even compete for certain tasks. And then, if you're hungry, you tell your agent, like, yeah, I need some DoorDash or whatever it might be. And maybe it knows your habits. Maybe it knows what type of food that you've ordered in the past. I think these things are, more and more things that not only we're starting to see, but you look at what Airbnb's doing now. If you've been following that, they're not just trying to get people to rent out their spaces anymore. They're trying to get people to rent out everything. I mean, quite literally everything. So everything is beginning to evolve, and it's moving towards still being attention based, right? It's just where that attention is shifting. Humans got to eat, right? Things need to be built, things need to be done, but how they're approached and how they're built is going to change. And that's what these agents will facilitate. Once again, you could speculate and say where you think it's all going to go, but I think it's pretty clear. There's really not much. There's not much else going on in the way of technology beginning to grow and more be at the forefront of each corporation and business. People are finding new and unique ways to add them into everything, whether it be, HR departments, whether it be accounts payable, accounts receivable, marketing, sales, lead generation in general. Those that figure out and those that are figuring out, because it is happening, how to utilize these things to automate their workflows and improve upon them. We're already seeing the results. So, I definitely recommend that you go and check out a lot of those tools and start playing with them, because at the end of the day, it's, people will be left behind. And I think the truth is it's not that there'll be so much left behind, is that, life is demanding too. We all have tasks, we all have things that we have to do, but figuring out, new and unique ways to automate those things, that's what's going to be key. And those IPs, That's a big thing. That's why you're seeing more people getting into the IP sector. That's going to be really, really key to all of this, because you're going to own that IP, right? Like that actual agent will be IP. It'll be acting on your behalf. So you earn royalties off that. Imagine there's art that you created with that agent. Imagine there's stuff that you're building with that agent or that you commission it to build. Anytime somebody taps into your agent, because you have to understand, look at it as a web. Obviously, the internet is a web, but quite literally, on the back end of all this, there's going to be an incredible, there's already APIs, right, all over, but all of these APIs are going to be accessed by agents. So imagine all these agents that specialize in different things. They do different things. There's like little software that does different things. It's all going to be connected, right? Connecting to each other. So, if it needs to make calls, it'll connect through a particular API or a point that allows it to do that. If it needs to make purchases, it'll, connect to something that'll allow it to do that, right? Security will be a big thing. It's probably the sector that people are least paying attention to. I mean, I'm sure behind the scenes, which you can see if you dig into it, it's not as pretty or as alluring as all the cool stuff that we see that's going on with AI agents, but it is probably even more crucial. So there's going to be a whole revolution just in security alone. Frankly, there needs to be. So seeing that and looking at how ads even work now, you could see how Tim Sweeney, CEO of Fortnite, was complaining about Apple recently. And if you've been following that situation, and you could see people that create even fake and spam content and things that aren't, legitimate, there'll be agents that verify. Because like I said, I think right now bots and spam and stuff like that it's unavoidable, right? But what happens when you live in an agent-driven economy that it checks all that, right? When the spam or the bots that you're seeing are catered towards things that you want to accomplish or things that you're looking to do, or like interaction points, things that you can interact with that are more interactive, because I think that is the future. It's figuring out ways to empower human experience and connectivity. It's just going to change how we interact with our environment through proxies. It's quite literally what they'll be. They'll be proxies, but nevertheless, they'll still be an aspect of you and your person, an extension, no different than your fashion and your clothes and your style and how you write things, how you approach things, how you would build things yourself. Right now, it feels very rudimentary. It feels very like, you tell an agent, hey, do this for me, and it does it for you, but it doesn't feel quite personalized yet. Just like when you go on social media and it says, hey, do you want to personalize these ads towards you? Same thing. You'll be personalizing these things towards you. So inevitably the job economy will change, and you will have people, once again, yeah, maybe your job as a designer isn't sitting around all day and doing, pretending to do work. I think the flip side to this is productivity. More things will get done. Things can be more efficient. Can you get to a point where it becomes, overly efficient? Where you kind of, you think so much into it that you begin to over optimize? Yeah, I think we'll definitely see a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot more of a lot of people taking a step back and saying, okay, is this actually practical? Is it pragmatic? But I think it's still unfolding. And that's where we're at now. We're starting to see what the possibilities are. So we're going to be covering a lot more of this, though. I wanted to do something quick today. I mean, it's been like 40 minutes. It's Friday. Some people are on their lunch break or they're just chilling. And I thought it was really interesting, man. It was a big thing. They said this morning they were going to announce it. So if you want like more information on it, definitely go check it out. I was looking at some of the posts that whatchamacallit was doing. Sam, the CEO of OpenAI. Let me see where's that post? Let me go check it out. There's a few of them he just posted. Oh yeah, here we go. Like right here. He was like, it's amazing and exciting to see how much software one person is going to be able to create with tools like this. You can just do things. It's one of my favorite memes. I didn't think it would apply to AI itself and its users in such an important way so soon. Today, we're introducing Codex. I mean, how could you not see it? I think a lot of these things are inevitable. And I think now that you already opened up Pandora's box, it's kind of cool in a way, if you ask me. Like, yeah, it could be a scary thing, it could be overwhelming. I think this is almost like a new era of exploration. Like, this is an opportunity. I feel like it's not like it hits the reset button, because that's not the right way to put it, but it opens up a new frontier of exploration. People are always battling with insecurities, right? Like, they always imagine, well, what if I could be more of this, or what if I can be more of that? Well, what if you could? What if you could build, a persona that perhaps, is something that would makes you feel better as a person? Maybe it makes you feel more productive. Maybe it helps you in your personal life, whatever. These things definitely have side effects. Don't get me wrong. And not everything is perfect. There'll be malicious actors and people that will use this for the wrong stuff. But that's like anything in life. You'll always have that. It's important to have checks and balances, of course. But I think you have to focus on the positive aspect of it, because you're not going to change it. And I think you're not going to stop it, from actually happening. And these are the types of things where I think more and more people are starting to realize. You see this in anime culture. You see this in, people with online profiles where they have, different PFPs that represent who they are. You can look at even Sam Altman, look at his PFP, look at my PFP, look at a lot of others. Creating your avatar. If you look, I don't think we're far off from Avatar. I mean, just like the movie, having an avatar that you go into, this digital version of yourself. That's exactly what this will be. It'll essentially be a digital version of yourself, which I think is pretty cool, right? Like, don't get me wrong, those human elements, those human experiences, Ready Player One, another way of looking at it. And I think that more and more we're starting to see that people are finding new ways of expression. And eventually that boils down to, once again, productivity, abstraction, automating certain processes. And that's what this does. So, that being said, I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know about you guys and how you thought about it, how you feel about it. Maybe you have a counterpoint. Some people say that it's a horrible thing. It's going to destroy a lot of lives, or it's going to destroy a lot of jobs. And, potentially, yeah. That's a harsh reality of it. But personally, I like to look on the bright side of all this. I like to say that, we're moving towards something bigger than ourselves. And I think little by little, we're going to learn. And I think we learn more about ourselves throughout the journey as well. Self-growth is, I think, an inevitable part of all of this. And I think the more that we explore these frontiers, the more we learn about ourselves and the better it gets. That being said, man, listen, guys, I appreciate you all tuning in today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay tuned for a lot more AI content. I'm going to be covering things with AI, Web3 based content, pretty much everything going on in the industry. You know me. If it's interesting, I like to jump in there and dissect it and see what goes on, man. What's going on out there as we grow. So follow along for the journey. Love you guys as always, man. Stay tuned till next time, man.